Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up and what did you want to be when you grow up?
Oh my gosh. So, a lot of people think I'm from this area, which is funny. I'm originally from northern Indiana, like super country, northern Indiana. So, I grew up small town, one stoplight. They called the high school Cow Pie High. That's not
Cow
even a
Pie
joke.
High.
Yeah. That wasn't really the name of the high school.
Yeah.
And I grew up there, and in all honesty, I always wanted to ride horses growing up, and I also wanted to be an astronaut. So I don't know if I thought I was gonna like ride a horse on the moon. I don't know, but anyway, that was my
Well,
jam.
you're living in Saratoga or you're working in Saratoga, so it's like horse country. I read that you went to the Indiana University of South Bend. What did you study and what brought you to the Capital Region?
Well, that's a funny story. That could take 30 minutes in itself, really. So, um, when I was growing up in Indiana, it's very poor and there's not a lot of like job opportunities for people. So if I was going to spend money on school, which I was one of the first, if not the first, of my family to go for a bachelor's degree. So if I was going to spend money on school, I needed to make sure I could get a job. So I ended up studying accounting as one of my majors, and then I loved marketing, so I got a double major because I was like, well, you're not necessarily going to graduate and somebody's going to be scrambling to hire you with a marketing degree. But if you have accounting, death and taxes, right? You can always do tax returns. So went to school for that and graduated with honors from Indiana. And then I was so over doing accounting by the end of my 4 years, because that's obviously not my passion, that I decided, well, why not? I may as well go ride horses for a living. I had a friend of the family that, not my family, but a friend of a really close friend's family, so a friend of the family that worked in Pennsylvania. So she had horses there all summer one year, and she's like, well, why don't you come out and work at the track with me and ride horses and pony the race horses, like the escort horse at the beginning of the race, and I'll pay you X dollars. And I was like, well, that sounds great and way better than accounting. So I moved to Pennsylvania. Then from Pennsylvania, I think I went to Kentucky. And then I went from Kentucky to New Orleans and started to learn how to gallop race horses. So that was my post-college career. So I rode thoroughbred race horses pretty much all over the world. So I lived in all over the states: Florida, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Orleans, Canada, England, Ireland, and I spent a year in Australia riding horses. Came back from Ireland, moved to Long Island, and then showed up in Saratoga for the race meet, and I was like, I love it here. So I decided to
Really?
stay.
So what year was it that you eventually like landed in Saratoga?
So I'm coming up on my 5 year anniversary at Prime Lending December 1st. But I came to Saratoga July of 2014 for the meet. And then everybody that I knew in the horses left in September 2014. And I was like, what am I going to do? I need two people, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was just, the horses left. They leave. So,
Yeah. So then like what made you want to stick around? Was it the horses or was it the job or
well, it's a handful of things. I had a really good friend. Her name's Sunshine, so obviously she's happy and wonderful. And so I had a really good friend that lived here with her husband. They still live here. They live in Greenfield, and she had ridden horses all over the country. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about retiring from riding. And she was like, I'll help you. So I lived in her basement for free for a long period of time, because you don't really have a very good resume, even though you have that college experience, if you ride horses for that long. So that was a big reason I didn't have to move home with my mom to start my life over, so I could stay with her. And Saratoga, for anybody locally that's listening, it's just kind of a special place. Like, it's walkable. It has a lot of fun bars, it has a lot of dining, and the real estate market's really good in Saratoga County. So I was like, well, I could stay here, and I just loved it. So, and I made just a really great, close-knit group of friends really quickly here. So that's
Cool.
why.
I saw that you're a TV host for the Capital OTB. Was that before Prime Lending or was that in the mix of it? So tell me about that.
So obviously my love for horses hasn't changed at all, right? So when I got my job for Prime, I went to a local real estate brokerage and did a presentation. And I don't know if you've heard me speak. I don't know if you've been to any of my events.
Yeah.
But I'm not your typical mortgage person. So I gave this presentation and everyone was like, who is this chick, right? So one of the agents at that brokerage is married to the producer at OTB. And so she was like, would you be interested in talking to my husband about doing something with OTB? And I was like, sure, why not? Because any opportunity can be a good opportunity. So,
which OTB stands for off-track betting.
Off-track betting. So I ended up going and talking with him, and they offered me, it was 5 mornings a week live on the OTB channel, and I did like backstretch insider. So I'd go in and interview like jockeys and see how they were doing and what horses they liked, and watch the workouts in the morning. And it was really cool. It's a great experience. I love television, and it was a great experience. And I think for me, it was pivotal in my career because there's how many mortgage people on the planet? So many. But when people found out I was doing the TV show and they're all obsessed with Saratoga racing, they were like, oh my God, that's so cool. You're on TV. So it helped start to build the brand that I have now as far as, as not your typical mortgage person. So I only did that for one summer because, to be fair, it was a lot to run a mortgage business and do live television at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So you've told me this story like off camera, but what brought you to the mortgage industry? Like, why prime lending?
Well, prime lending because nobody else would hire me. Thank you, John. That's my branch manager. Nobody else would hire me because I didn't have any experience, right? So that's why prime lending. And I basically rocked into his office. I met him through Sunshine and Dave. Their neighbor across the street worked for Ionello and Anderson, and she connected me with John. And I basically rocked up for a couple interviews and said, if you hire me, I'm going to be your top producer. So that's just like one level of kind of cockiness that you kind of have to kind of change your life, right? So, and then the mortgage industry, because I was really close with a family growing up, and the mom, the head of the household, did mortgages for a living. And I was always like, this lady has it made. She like does really well. She's always seems to be in a good mood. She's always home for Christmas for a week.
Little did you know.
Little did I know, right? Exactly. It was different back then than it is now. But and she always wanted to recruit me back in Indiana because she said, you're great with people and you're great with numbers. Like, that's 2 key things if you're going to do
Thank you, accounting.
Yes, right? So that's how mortgages and that's how prime lending happened. Okay. So I'm sure there's a few banks that are recruiting now that are like, dang it, maybe I should have hired her.
Yeah, I know. I mean, really.
Oh, well. Oh, good. Anyway.
So tell me now that, so you're at prime lending, you're a mortgage originator. Is that the term? Okay. What does a day in the life of Anna look like?
Well, I mean, every day is a little different. Right? I mean, you're in real estate, you know that no 2 days are the same, no 2 clients, no 2 files are the same. So I'm a mortgage originator, but I am now technically team lead of my team, so the Anna Smith team under Prime Lending umbrella. So my job on the team is to go out and generate business. So that's my main job for the team. And that is, interacting with people, making sure our name is out there, making sure that we're the first people they call when somebody needs a mortgage. But really, a mortgage originator is going out and finding people that need loans and then counseling them and educating them on the mortgage process in hopes that they'll want to do business with you. That's basically. Some days I can be in my office for 8-10 hours. Those are not my favorite days. And then some days I'll be in and out of lunch meetings and coffee appointments and presenting at homebuyer seminars and closings. Yeah, I was at a closing earlier, going out and I do a lot of speaking and engagement, so stuff like that. So that's more the lead gen portion of it, as opposed to being in here and actually processing and originating the loan.
Okay.
So,
can we talk a little bit about how you do the your speaking engagements and the seminars? Like, what made you start to do those, and
right,
and how has that helped with your personal brand?
It's helped a lot. I think that I just have a natural affinity for wanting to talk in front of people. I've always been that person that volunteers to go up in front of the stage when somebody needs a volunteer for something or whatever. And I really enjoy I don't really say I'm in sales. I wouldn't say it's sales. Like, I really enjoy bringing value to my referral partners and business partners by inspiring them and motivating them and helping them to grow their business. So it's led to an array of different speaking things that I've done. I've done Racing for Success, which was like business builders and tips on how I grew my business so quickly in like 2.5 years. And I've done Moving Mountains, where I brought in a financial advisor and helped counsel people in real estate on how they can manage their finances and do their retirement. I've done Facebook, social media stuff. I've run the gamut as far as the stuff. So next year, stay tuned, because I'm developing something new. But I just really enjoy it. And I think if you are, in a commodity business where it's like mortgages or real estate or insurance, you've got to do something a little bit different than everybody else. And it's not like many mortgage people are going out and giving giant presentations to 100 people to help them. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was big for the brand as far as that goes.
Is it, because like you must go through so much planning in order to put those off, right?
Well, I have help, so it's not just me. So I have my right hand, Jenny O'Brien, and she helps with all the venues and the plan. She does almost all of that, like the food and all of that jazz. And then the preparation for the actual speaking can take me some time. But it's also like I find something that I'll focus on, and it'll be like, this is a pain point that's been in my career, and here's how I've overcome it. And it's fairly easy to put content together, pulling from different sources and pulling from my own personal experience. And I have a coach too that coaches me, so that helps.
That's good to know.
Yeah, coach is huge.
Accountability.
Yes, and just like ideas on how to make things better, or sometimes.
I feel like we're going to need a part 2 of a podcast, like how to plan a seminar.
Right,
I feel like there's so much you can go into in terms of like what to do to execute and everything. So
and getting people to show up. Yeah, absolutely.
We can talk about seminars.
Absolutely.
So I looked you up on Zillow, and these are some of the reviews that people have said about you. These are straight from Zillow. Anna went out of her way to make herself available for all my questions, and always with a smile. She was very prompt and timely. And then she made you feel like you were her only client when you were working with her. So a lot of all great reviews. How do you stay so organized and keep up with your clients and send the notes and network and do seminars to be like, how are you so successful? Please share your secrets.
My secrets. I work a lot, but I also have systems in place for how things should go. Like I said, I have help, so it's not just me. So for just as an example, my right-hand lady, Jenny, will go through, and obviously we get client birthdays when we do a mortgage pre-approval, right? So in my calendar, if you looked at my Google Calendar, there's a section at the top, and it's just birthdays for the day, and it'll be 4 or 5 people that I can call or send notes to or whatever. So we just have a lot of systems in place for that, and I also have I have a cat, so I don't really have, my whole life has been doing mortgages since I've been here. So, and just this, maybe I'm just too dumb to quit kind of thing, just where I will max myself out. I'm okay, well, I have a 7 a.m. BNI meeting I have to show up to, and then I'll teach a seminar at 8 o'clock at night. And that hard work ethic doesn't bother me. I can do it for an extended period of time. I don't know if it's because I'm from Cornhusking, Indiana, or the horses instill a 7-day-a-week, 5 o'clock in the morning work ethic in you. When I was riding, 7 days a week, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just kind of don't know how to be any different. So, but a lot of systems. You really have to put it all in your calendar, and it all has to be planned out. Otherwise.
So what you're saying is, if you want to be successful in this industry, you can't be lazy.
Right. Oh, lazy? you could be, but you're probably not going to do that much business on that front.
What are some of the systems you use? Because, I literally, I've gotten a card from you, instantly. You've got, I know you've talked about, your organizational flow chart of things. Do you mind sharing some things that might help someone listening if they're struggling with organization? And
sure, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be
Yeah, well, I don't even mind. Like, I'm very open with what I have done and what I do and how I do it with a lot of people, because most of the time you'll find that most people won't do it anyway. Even if you teach them how, they're probably not going to do it anyway. Yeah. So I'm happy to share for that person out there that might be listening that wants to make a change. So biggest thing is having an electronic organized calendar. And having, if you're running solo, you can still be very organized. I am not inherently a very organized person. This industry has made me have to be. So having a calendar and putting everything in it and blocking out time for it is really important. I use what's called Trello. I don't know if you've heard of Trello, and it's like a flow chart. So when a client calls, let's say a client calls John Smith, okay? John Smith calls, you can put their name in, and it has a drop down that goes through our perfect loan process. So each member of my team has their section that they do. So John Smith calls, they stay in warm leads, and then when it becomes a hotter lead, it moves over, and you can just flow it all the way down through and make sure everything's checked off. It has alerts and notifications. That's really great. And then you can't really see it from here, but most of my days I will take a piece of paper, and it's a legal size piece of paper, and I will break it out into stuff that is huge priority, stuff that is like medium level priority, and stuff that just needs to get done, right? And at the end of the day, every day I'll take that sheet and whatever's been crossed out and make sure that all the priorities have been taken care of, and all the medium level ones are, depending, can this wait till tomorrow or not? And then transfer it onto another sheet of paper and just kind of keep, and that sounds really old school, but it works to block it out, because I think when a lot of people get overwhelmed, they look at a to-do list and you're like, oh my God, but really only 3 of those things actually have to get done. And a lot of that stuff, if you do have a team, can get delegated, and delegation is huge, 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 huge. There's 4 of us on the team. So it's like, all right, delegate it out. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that
awesome.
helps.
That's so valuable. I think just having, because I'm not inherently organized either, but this business forces you to. So having systems that go into play every day, I think, is so important.
And I'm always looking to improve mine. Like there are always ways to improve, and either working with a consultant or a coach or something like that can help you improve on what you're doing, because, or going, it's another thing, like I have a national crew of mortgage women that I lean on, and just like reaching out to a mentor, like I think you might ask me something about that, but having somebody that you can bounce off of ideas is so huge. Maybe someone that's been in the business 20 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
what do you have a routine or a mantra or like a mentor, like somebody that keeps you motivated daily?
Well, being that I'm kind of a self-proclaimed workaholic, I'm just motivated by doing my best on the regular. But a mentor, my coach is huge. I'm always bouncing, like, how do I even respond to this person? Like, just bouncing little stuff off of her all the time. There's a woman that I was introduced to. This is actually sounds really long-winded, but I rode horses with this girl in Indiana when I was a kid, and her mom was a realtor, very successful in Indiana, and her best friend is this mortgage lady who owned one of the first mortgage companies in the country, right? So she now doesn't do mortgages, but she has this like national group of mortgage women that she does, a website for and all this. And Karen's just a rock star. Her name's Karen Dice. So she runs mortgagegirlfriends.com. And, if you ever need a kick in the pants, like you can call her and be like, I can't do this. And she'll be like, you can do it. I did it. You're fine. So that's a big thing. And I just have that. I don't know if anybody's heard of the Clifton Strengths Finder.
The what?
Clifton Strengths Finder.
Clifton Strengths Finder?
Yeah, it's a book, and you can go on and take like a test, and it's like a personality test to a certain degree, but it shows you like all of your strengths. And my number one strength is basically just do it. So like I'm just one of those people, like I just like to get stuff done. And you can train yourself that way through personal coaching or business coaching or whatever to be more that way. But that's just my personality. I'm like, don't stop. And you got to read all the good stuff, right? Like motivational books. There's so many great books out there that you have to like be reading something consistently that's going to keep you in a good headspace, because we get a little abuse in this business sometimes. So you have to like keep yourself in that headspace.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if that helps.
What do you do to pull you out when you're do you make a call, or do you have do you get quiet and like ground your, like, what do you do to
So
when you're feeling that, like,
yeah.
when you're feeling down?
When you're feeling down and out.
Yeah.
So in addition to Karen, my friend Lori's out of Texas. She's in that same group. So like we'll have a call and she'll just be like, you're fine. She's been doing it 25 years or something like that. So it's great to pick up the phone and call her. A big thing I do is I go out and ride my horse. And so I lease a horse out in Galway right now. And I only go maybe once or twice a week, but you forget you spend so many years, like 10 hours a day on and around horses, but like that's my original passion, and to go back to it and just remember like everything that seems really important right now that seemed really horrible, you're gonna forget about it. And because how many times have I fallen off a horse and I still want to ride, right? So doing something that you love, that you're passionate about, getting away from the office, and sometimes it's just good to take a break, a little breather. So I don't know if that helps.
No, totally.
Yeah.
What is some advice you can give to somebody who's just beginning the pre-approval process? So we're kind of switching gears to somebody who's maybe might want to look at a house. Maybe they got a pre-approval on an online company. What's your advice for them?
So I could do a whole half an hour just about this, right? My biggest advice for anybody that's beginning even thinking about buying a house is to get pre-approved as soon as possible. And not all pre-approval processes are created equal. So you can go online to some of those online lenders and you can type in stuff and they'll shoot you a pre-approval letter. But you don't know what your budget is. You don't know if it's really accurate. You don't know if that online lender knows what the New York State taxes are like. There's so many holes in that. So getting started early, I have clients that are talking to me and getting pre-approved now that don't want to buy till next spring. But you don't know what's going to be on your credit report when it's pulled. And you really need to have a good idea of the reality of what a mortgage payment and costs are going to be. And I don't think your online sources, Zillow, Realtor.com, I don't think they do a good job of prepping people.
And your down payment.
Yeah, your down payment, your closing costs. New York State's a typically higher closing cost state. You just have no idea. So when I'm working with a client, if they call me, we're going to start with a phone consultation, and I'm going to listen for all those red flags that your online people are not going to listen for. Okay, so collect documents from you. Make sure that I know I can get you the loan, because my reputation's on the line here at this point too. It's not like it's online. So that first call, collect documents, and then we'll set up a follow-up meeting where I'm a what's called a CMPS, which is a certified mortgage planning specialist. So it's an extra designation. So that second call or that second meeting, either or call or meeting, we're going to go through, your comfort payment. What does that look like? Your parameters. We're going to go through what's New York State transfer tax. I mean, what goes into my homeowner's insurance? And that we'll spend an hour just going through everything. It's more like Mortgage 101 class when you do that planning session with me. But get it done early. You just never know. I'll have people that call me and they're like, I have a house I want to put an offer on, and they didn't realize they made a late payment on a credit card. They opened it Kohl's, you know what I mean? And now their credit score is not where they thought it was going to be, and now we have to take some time to fix it. And it's just better to do it earlier than later, for sure.
Good advice. What are some misconceptions? So, we're in December now. What are some misconceptions about purchasing a home during the winter? Like, are there any advantages? Because, a lot of people say, I'm going to wait till spring. Right. I don't know, are there advantages to buying a house in the winter?
Right. Well, some of these answers as well, like as far as, you have less buyers out on the market, so you're more likely to be able to negotiate better. The other thing that's great about this time of the year in the mortgage process is we're typically like less full of a pipeline, so you're probably going to get me faster, get people faster than at the height of spring when you're getting 15 calls a day. So this process will feel less stressful because there's not as much going on. You're not competing against 15 people for one house, right? The competition is less for everything, right? So that's a big thing. And I think a lot of people do that because of the holiday season. They're already overwhelmed, but we can make it easy enough on them that you can get pre-approved and it's not like a nightmare. Do you know what I mean? Right. So I think people are just worried about adding an extra stress level to it. And you can save a lot of money at this time of the year.
Yeah, because interest rates, aren't they typically a little bit lower this time of year?
Not necessarily. So fixed rate mortgages are based on what the mortgage bond market is doing. Okay, so a lot of people will hear, oh, the Fed has dropped the rate. Well, that doesn't necessarily immediately impact mortgage rates, right? So every mortgage is packed into like a little package and then sold out. Not every mortgage, but the majority in the country are packaged up and then they're sold out and securitized into the mortgage bond market. And then they're traded just like stocks, right? So doesn't necessarily mean that any particular time of the year is going to be a lower rate. It's going to depend on what's that bond market doing, what's going on with tariffs, what's going on, economically, presidentially, all of that stuff has an impact on mortgage rates. Mm-hmm. So the time of the year doesn't necessarily impact them. It's what's going on economically. And I could talk about that for a long time too. So you better stop me now.
Going back to like this business, I know like being in real estate is challenging. And I know as a realtor it is, because like, especially if you're just starting and you're trying to build your business. And I know that like you do so much networking, you do so much like just to build your personal brand. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to somebody, like how would you like coach someone if they were new to this town, like you were new to this town and they're trying to build up their career? What advice would you give them?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I'm going to say that if you want a lot of detail, I did the Racing for Success event is on YouTube. So if you Google Racing for Success, Anna Smith, you can watch it. It's like 53 minutes and it's step-by-step stuff that I did. But there's two things that are like the most important. One is not sitting at home, like go out and meet people. So I did at least 2 coffee appointments with new people every day for at least a year. And every coffee appointment that I went to had to lead to at least another coffee appointment. I always had to replace, unless I didn't like get a good vibe from that person. Every coffee appointment had to be replaced by another one. So I'd meet Sally for lunch and I'd say, you know what, Sally, I'm new to the area. Just getting up and going. And I know you may not need a mortgage person, but who do I need to know? And that question just like opened doors. She'd be like, oh, here, meet these 5 people. Do you know what I mean? And then I had 5 more coffee appointments from that. So that's number 1, is getting out and meeting people. Number 2 is making sure all those people, you keep track of them. You put them in your database. You make notes about them. You keep that database because that database is going to be the future of your business. So, remembering people's kids' names and dogs and things like that, and keeping that in a database for interaction for later. But those are the 2 biggest things. I also started an email newsletter at the very beginning, and I thought about, well, my target audience at the time was real estate agents. So I was like, okay, what do real estate agents want to read? So I put stuff in about their listings and their stuff, and then like horse racing tips. And I sent it out to my people. First it was 3 people. Now it's 3,800 people. And it goes out every week pretty much religiously. So meet people, keep a database, and interact with that database, and they'll remember you. So I also say have like a big heart-to-heart with yourself about what your brand is. Like, what do you want people to remember about you? Because, I think that you and I both have done a good job of like branding, where it's not just your everyday person selling real estate or doing mortgages. So, sit down for a couple hours on a mountain or something and write down stuff that makes you and use that and put that in all your stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's my advice. But if you go for Racing for Success, Anna Smith, you'll find it, and it goes through like 7 more things that I did. So feel free to have at that.
Because you've really grown your business, and I feel like people know you pretty well, I think, for mortgages, I feel like every person I know knows you. Every agent that I know knows you. So.
Well, that's good. I've done all right then.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that's social media too. Mm-hmm. And I talk about that in the Racing for Success as well, because it's just, I guess I just went out and tried to figure out how to bring value to everybody. And I'm loud, so you can't really ignore me, right? Yeah. So there's that. Anyway, but
no, it's so true, because in this business you have to find a way to set yourself apart. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important especially if someone is new and they're trying to build their brand. Mm-hmm. Like, what do they have And I think that's another reason why I always end this podcast with your biggest strength is who you are, is because if somebody finds that strength about what they have is so different from anybody else, even in the same industry. And I feel like if you hone in on that, you can really like use that to help you succeed, which is what you've done.
Yeah. And I mean, I think some people might have trouble identifying that for themselves. I really never have. I still have people that I've known since I was like 8 years old, and they will post on my Facebook wall funny horse stuff because they knew I loved horses, right? So I've always kind of just put out there my authentic self over and over and over again forever. But if you have a hard time figuring out where your awesomeness is, you can do the Clifton Strengths. But I also would send out an email or make a call to mentors, people that are close with you, and be like, what would you say are the biggest things that make me me? If you have a hard time identifying it. And you'll be surprised, I think, sometimes at what people would come back with, right? So, and then make your list.
Yeah.
Brand on that. So,
yeah. So this is a question that I ask everybody. What do you typically do for lunch?
Oh my gosh, right? Yeah. So I'll be honest. There are days that I skip lunch because I'm too busy. But my first building years of the business, I had lunch with a different person every day. You should always, what was it, Zig Ziglar that said eat lunch with a different person every day or something? I can't remember. Anyway, but sometimes I'll sit here at my desk and eat. It's true. I've watched your eating lunch in the car videos. I mean,
I ate lunch in the car on my way here.
Yeah, right? So you saw my lunch here today, which was like 6 almonds while you were setting up. But, or I'll pop out in town, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't know if that helps.
No, it's just something that I like to ask everybody.
Yeah.
So where can people find you on social media?
Sure. So my personal page is, or my business page is the Anna Smith Team of Prime Lending. That's on Facebook. And then my Instagram handle is at Mortgage Chick Saratoga. And then my website's my518mortgage.com. And that has pretty much all my contact information if anybody needs to get a hold of me.
Yep. And we'll link all of that in our show notes.
Awesome.
So people can connect to you. And if they want to ask you anything further,
Sure.
I'll have them go to the show notes.
I'm always happy to help.
Yeah.
Especially people that are like getting started. I have senior agents now that'll send you just got in the business, so you should go meet with Anna, because it's just to give them ideas on what to do, right?
Yeah.
So always happy to help.
Thanks, Anna. I appreciate you taking the time out of your super crazy schedule to meet me.
Thank you for having me. It was such an honor for you to take your time out to interview me. Thanks, Meg.
Yeah, anytime. That was Anna Smith, Mortgage Originator at Prime Lending. Visit our show notes at workinglunchpod.com for links that Anna mentioned, photos, and a video of our interview. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook. We're at Working Lunch Pod. If there's someone who you would like to be featured as a guest, email us at workinglunchpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to Working Lunch. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We have one more episode next week before we conclude season 1. Can't believe it. And remember, your biggest strength is who you are.